for our first attempt at this, and I'm looking forward to this being a groundbreaking first step forward by our organization to be more involved in the communities within the gay community that many times get ignored, whether it be Black, trans, women, all that stuff. There's one thing, unfortunately, in the gay community we have found is that we're really good at excluding others within our own community. And it's terrible. We demand equality in one hand, and then we yank it away with the other. So it's important that we recognize that when we're yelling for equality from everybody outside of us, that we need to work extra hard for that equality inside. Because the only way we're going to win equality is by showing everyone else how it works, not punishing them for their past behavior. So our event today has the titles Race in Wilton Manors, a Unifying Roundtable, Town Hall. The people here have graciously donated their time, and JB will introduce everybody when that comes to it. But I want to tell you a little bit about our organization and our struggle, because I've been asked to speak very briefly on this. I left Indiana after a decade of running a gay group, and I will tell you what I learned. I thought I was going to war against straight people. So no, that was 40% of my time. 60% was warring against gay people. And it's makes you want to quit what you do because you can't understand, why am I doing all this for that whole $0 paycheck, giving up my life, work, social life, everything else, when the people I'm trying to help are stabbing me in the back? It's disillusioning. And unfortunately, it drives away our leaders. The biggest problem that I run into running a large organization, semi-large organization, we're growing, is growing new managers, new leaders to come forward, because our community burns them out. And to use people in this crowd that run organizations, I think you can understand what I'm talking about. And us as a community, when we lose a bright, gay, Black person who shows so much promise, and they get burned out by the way they're treated from other Black gay people, from white gay people, and then let's just add the whole, on the outside part too, okay? They realize that they just burn out, they get hopeless, and they leave, and that's another future person. And our leadership is aging as a gay community, and we have not been working hard to replace that. And so every single person, it's critical that we address these issues the best we can. When I came here, I swore I'd never run another gay group in my life unless I mowed the Pride Center's lawn. That's all I was going to do for the gay group. So somehow I got wrangled into Stonewall. But I just told myself, nope, not a gay thing. It's the biggest economic driver in the city event-wise. So, but after a couple years of that, 3 old white gay men, that was us doing this, I realized that Stonewall, once we fixed its problems, it became a tool, not for the cash it throws off or for the party it has, it elevated me, it elevated the organization. And so the best thing that we could move forward was to throw that weight around, literally, to demand change, incrementally demand change. So we started growing more nonprofits, Taste of the Island, Art Walk. We formed WeMig to do more. Then I bought HotSpots and converted it to a nonprofit. So all of a sudden, we have 7 nonprofit organizations under one mantle here. And our diversity isn't because Stonewall, we run reports on diversity and blah, 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 and we fail, but fail against an absolute level. But we succeed if we compare it to where it was in 2015. So we got progress. But our organization, each element that we have is not diverse. We're diverse by our collection. We have, obviously, HotSpots Magazine, the name label that we picked up, male, older, gay, white, all right? That's what I bought. So, and we're working on that. We've done, Scott has done an amazing job, him and his team, trying to drag it into a different format. But we could not fix Stonewall. We tried. I reached out to Anthony Wynn, who probably regrets that he ever raised his hand, to do our Black Pride stage. And then we went and we put it in the center of the festival. It is the main stage for our entire event, is the Black Pride stage. So and that helps a little, but it's the other things. This is part of our diversity. Pride Fete, when we resurrected that and brought it back to the city, that's part of our diversity. Yes, we're gonna attempt to do better in-house. I have 2 very excellent senior levels of managers right here. An amazing set, do not poach, okay? All right, so they're amazing. And I want to empower them with every asset that I have available to achieve the goal that I have laid out for the organization, to expand beyond where we started. And I'm reminded every week that we fail, okay? Oh, sorry, I didn't notice you there. Okay, but you know, that's a good thing because I need to be challenged because I got my views and my experience of life, and that's not hers, and it's not yours. And do I wish I could have X number of Black people, X number of Cuban, this many women, and all this stuff? But we all know the reality doesn't work that way. And we're one of those few gay organizations that do something very difficult in the gay community. Most gay organizations, gay male or gay female, Black or white or Latin. And we all huddle in our group very strong. And then we demand everyone else execute change. But we forgot to look inside to ourselves. That it's very hard for me to advocate doing something like a Pride Fete, okay, where all of a sudden other subgroups come in. Well, were there enough white people performing? Did you get enough women? How about two-spirited, transgendered? All a legitimate concern and a reality as leaders that we face here and we get judged for, whether we succeed or not. Every happy person is 2 haters. So, but the thing is that we try. In our organization, we're doing the best that we can. So to help execute that change, to put this first. And I want to tell you, I resisted what I'm talking about right now because I did not think it was my place to stand here and tell you how to be Black. I really didn't. Because for the same reason, I try to avoid stages, period, anyways, but I definitely Pride Fete, other events like that. That we need to put the people empowered forward. This event, all I did was clear the hurdles that JB and Jasmine identified to me. That's it. So, and gave my experience of what could go wrong for all those people who run groups, that could go wrong and how could you deal with that? That was it. So some people think, okay, it's good. I'm standing here as a white old man who's gay, who's leading an organization that has chosen to get involved in the Black community, in the Black gay community. Our only other option is to not be involved. So in one way, yes, it is my place to stand here and talk about this, but it's only because my staff requested it. Because it really today is not about me. It is about everyone in this room who struggles with identity and the forces against us. And these 2 people right down here below me, they're the ones that done the most amazing work in this organization to force us to diversify from where we came from. And Lord, were we white, and male. So, I mean, unfortunately, you get what you get, and that's who raised their hand to was the volunteer. So, but we're trying, and all we're asking everyone else to is to try a little also. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it, and I will give it to JB.
Thank you, Jeff Sterling. So yes, it was our suggestion to have him up. And one of the reasons why we really wanted him to speak is we want everybody to see the man behind the organization and realize that this objective of us being diverse and inclusive is not just coming from the 2 individuals that you see moderating this event today, but also at the helm of our organization. You know, he's the first one to tell me, and I'm not afraid to share this, but we have a Women's History Month exhibit coming up. And part part of our organization's goal is to include all of our events and our initiatives across the board. For those of you who don't know who we are HotSpots Happening Out. We are a media group, and that is with print publication, a television network through our partnership with Happening Out, as well as events annually and monthly. Some of you know one of our biggest events, Stonewall Pride, and we also have a gallery. All these different things, along with our digital component, should work all seamlessly together. And for Women's History Month, Art Walk was something that I propelled as St. Patty's Day theme. And I completely forgot to include women in that aspect of what we do. And it was from the helm that I got directed. The person that shouts diversity the most got directed to, hey, you forgot to include women in one of these aspects. And that's important to me because even us individuals that want change and inclusivity and diversity also have our own biases and get overlooked things, you know? And I'm happy to say that there are people within our organization who are willing to assist when even myself and others that adhere to it drop the ball. So again, it was important for me and our organization to hear him speak. I wouldn't say that necessarily it's something that had to happen, but I also will say I'm very grateful that it did happen. So on to the program. My name is Jameer Baptiste, and I'm the events manager at HotSpots Media Group, and HotSpots Happening Out Media Group, LGBTQ plus media organization, again with platforms that extend from print publication, events annually and monthly, as well as a gallery and digital and social as well. And I'm the moderator, one of the two moderators, and we have Jasmine to my left here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jasmine Rogers. I use she, her pronouns. And for me, Jeff speaking was a requirement because if we're demanding accountability from other businesses and the city of Wilton Manors, then we need to be able to hold our own feet to the fire and have that conversation internally. So he was resistant, like he said, and I'm glad that it happened, so that as an employee, as a person that is working here, I can hear directly in front of a room full of people that I know, respect, and work with, where the priorities are. And since it's recorded, I can also say, you said, so let's do it. And when he tells you that weekly, I tell them we're failing, it's very much the truth. And that I say, you know, if you look at these pictures, if you look at our website, who would believe that this is what we're saying is our intention and our priority? We have to make all of these things align. And I think that that is my same message to the businesses that are represented here, to the city that's represented here. It's different to have your internal messages and say we welcome everybody versus creating space, versus using your power to open the doors and create stages for other people to thrive in the places that you control. So I'm hoping that in this conversation tonight, we can have that conversation, and we can have that conversation. I don't like the word respectful because I think the trauma of white supremacy is not respectful, so why should I be? But in a way that is productive, in a way that gives everybody clarity, in a way that allows us to be able to hear each other and then move forward from there. So that is what we're hoping with this conversation tonight, moderated by the two of us with a lot of intention and thoughtfulness, and also from a place where we live and do work in Wilton Manors, and we want to continue doing that work, and doing that work in a way that we feel heard, we feel seen, and we feel uplifted.
Before we get into the first part of our program, I would like to say that this is an initiative from our annual cookout. The cookout is our Black History Month celebration. This year we celebrated our second year of it, and it's something that we wanted to do ever since last year, and fortunately this year we had the opportunity to do it. The cookout is powered by HotSpots and also the city of Wilton Manors. They have come to the table as our sponsor, and they help us with a lot of many different different events. And I would just echo what Jasmine said in regards to having this conversation. You know, we all have to be mindful and understanding of each other's point of view and be productive as possible in having this conversation. That doesn't mean that there aren't intense emotions behind it, but at the same time, in order for us to make progress, we need to make sure that even with those intensities, that we are hearing each other and having a productive conversation. So I do thank everybody for being here today, because that's the first step. Everybody joining us in this room right now actually has helped bring this to light. And that's exactly what we needed to do. So now it's about moving forward and also speaking to those individuals and shedding some actual light on what's going on.
So our program tonight will start with true accounts and stories from individuals that experience racial attacks in Wilton Manors. So this is very much their real stories, and that of also countless others. So we have to understand that while their individual stories are also representative of larger systemic issues that are happening in Wilton, and I see people in the audience, Black people in the audience nodding their heads. So I know that there's variations of all of these stories that so many of us have experienced in these 2 square miles in less than 20,000 people. So we want to make sure that we're creating a container where these folks can share their stories and share them authentically, also providing them the compassion that these are traumatic events, right? So we want to be able to give them the space to feel what they need to feel and say what they need to say.
So thank you to everyone on the panel, and especially our survivors, individuals that actually have experienced situations that aren't pleasant at all and are dangerous not only to our person, but also mentally, our mental health, and just surviving an experience of racism. The first survivor that I would like to introduce is Sam. And Sam, if you don't mind, if you would like to introduce yourself to the audience, as well as how you're affiliated with Wilton Manors, the city.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Samuel Frey. I am a local music teacher. I've lived in the city of Wilton Manors for, I want to say, the last 4 years, Florida altogether. Very good friends with Jeff Sterling. That is probably how I can really say that that's my affiliation with Wilton Manors, is really Jeff Sterling. To start about my story, it's a very short story. This was back in October of 2020. This was at the Alibi Monkey Bar outside. A few of my friends and I were dining outside. We were having drinks. We were just laughing, having a good time. It was the beginning of October, so we were celebrating my birthday. I think that's what we were doing. That's what we were out doing. And while we were dining, randomly, we were just interacting with each other, so that we were not really engaging with any other patrons that were at the monkey bar that evening. This middle-aged Caucasian male walked up to me. Really, he walked up directly to me and just started shouting effing N-word over and over and over to my face. And me, I just sat there in shock. And this attack verbally went on for about, I want to say, a good minute before Alibi staff came in and intervened and actually escorted him out. Even though I would say Alibi handled this incident pretty well, as he was escorted away, I and my friends just sat there in shock, not knowing what to do. I was speechless. I got up, I excused myself and just went to the bathroom, and I actually went to the bathroom and cried. I was in Alibi, which is supposed to be our safe haven. It's supposed to be a place where we can really show our true colors and feel like it's a safe space. And that night, I felt like my safe space was gone. After I was able to get and collect myself from the bathroom, I came back out. I think Wilton Manors Police was called, and they did show up, and they took a statement. They took a report. In the weeks following that report, they really were not able to determine who this gentleman was that came up and verbally assaulted me and my friends. I felt like more could have been done to find out who this person and individual was, and they could be really I think charges could have been brought up against him. I definitely would have, had I been able to find out. Now, this incident happened in October of 2020, so I don't know since then if there have been any upgrades in the technology that is out there, if there's any cameras or anything, because, in this day and age now, you walk onto any establishment, there's cameras there. You're well seen. Surveillance is very, very well, is probably at an all-time high in this day and age. I would hope since this incident happened then, that technology advancements have been made in that respect. I would say, yeah, in the weeks following that, the response that I did post this to my social media. The response that I was getting back from a lot of my friends, which happened to a lot of my Caucasian friends, just to be very, very transparent with you, they were like, "Sam, how could this happen to you? You're so good looking." And I was like, and to me, I couldn't believe that so many of my friends were saying that to me. And I'm like, well, why would you think that means why would my appearance have anything to do with somebody racially attacking me? Your appearance has nothing to do with that. You cannot you cannot look better and not have somebody attack you over the way you look, or over the way how good you look. But it's mostly the color of your skin. And all of us that are of same skin color, that are of African American descent, we all have experienced this. No matter where you are, no matter what you look like, it has affected us all. I'm sure I'm a part of this panel. I'm sure me and many other African Americans in this room have a story very similar to mine, or something that they would be able to sit here and tell you about. That response to me was probably one of the most unsettling responses, and I felt, I guess, a sense of responsibility to really come out and say, listen, there's nothing you can do really to avoid somebody treating you badly. There's nothing I can do. We need to just educate others and really, just stop the hate. It's just out of control. And that's really what I experienced. So if there's any other questions, I would be happy to take it at this time.
Thank you so much for that, Sam. Thank you so much for that. I'm speechless. So introducing our next survivor story is Antonio. Antonio, can you tell us your name, your affiliation, how you came to Wilton Manors, and also what happened, and how have you recovered or coped with what has happened?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Antonio Edwards. I moved here about 8 years ago from New York City, and NYC. I actually live about a block from here, so this was very convenient for me to come up here and be a part of this. As far as how I got to Wilton Manors, some of you may know that I'm an entertainer. I'm a local entertainer here, and I'm a singer. And I also sing with a wonderful cisgendered woman by the name of Lenora J. We do several shows together and several shows apart. As far as what happened, we were doing our show at the pub. It was December of 2021, so about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And it was at the end of our show. Our show was about 2 or 3 hours. We were asked by a person in the audience to do a song by Rick James and Tina Marie called Fire and Desire, which is a very soulful, romantic ballad. In the middle of that song, a random person walks up to Lenora, and I'm singing this way facing the audience, and Lenora's waiting for her part, and he walks up to her and says, and I'm going to use the language he used so you all understand. He said, "We're not niggers and we don't like nigger music." Those were his words. Not mine, not Lenora's, his words. So Lenora was taken quite aback because she's performing, and when you're on stage, you're literally vulnerable. So she's on stage going, "I'm sorry, what?" And Lenora's from Brooklyn, New York, and if you all know Lenora, that could have ended very differently. But she decided to take the high road, and I'm so glad you said what you said, which was, you recently just said, why should I be respectful because white supremacy isn't respectful, so why should I be? That landed right there when you said that, because we chose to be respectful. Now, I will say this, as Michael's in the room, Michael's the owner of the pub, the manager on duty was Keith that night, and our bartender was Patrick. They jumped before the song was over. Patrick was over that bar and was like, "Excuse me, no, you're not talking to our entertainers that way." And so immediately it was handled. In terms of how have I overcome it, or what am I dealing with it now? I will be 58 years of age this year. This is nothing new to me, and it's really interesting because and your story was very similar, Sam, when you said my Caucasian friends were like, "That happened to you here in Wilton Manors? Like it's puppies and rainbows here." I'm like, it's not puppies and rainbows. These things happen, and specifically they happen to people of color. And so if your reaction is, "Really, that happened to you?" And the same thing, "You're so good looking." I'm like, well, only ugly black men get attacked? I was confused. But anyway, that's my story. So thank you.
Before I hand the mic back to JB, I want to say 58 where? Like,
Thank you, Antonio. And I would just like to say before we pass it on to our next survivor is that Lenora J., who is a cisgender black woman, was also part of that survivor story. And unfortunately, she couldn't be here. She did want to be here, but she couldn't. And this story extends not only to the black gay men that you see here today, but also to all black individuals that live and breathe and play in Wilton Manors. And she was one of those people, you know, a cisgender, a black woman was also a survivor of racism in Wilton Manors. So what, if you guys didn't hear them, they both posted it on social media and it went viral. Thank you again, Antonio, for your bravery and sharing your story with us here today. Next is Elijah. Elijah, do you want to tell everybody your name and how you're affiliated with Wilton Manors, and tell us your story, basically what happened, what was the response to it, and how you're recovering from it.
Thank you. Elijah Manley here. I live across the bridge in the beautiful city of Fort Lauderdale. Sorry to all the Wilton Manors people here. Pronouns he or they. Although I live in Fort Lauderdale, I come to Wilton Manors a lot for entertainment. I find it to be where I do everything at. It's a fun place to be, generally speaking. And I ran for office, and part of my district covered Wilton Manors and Oakland Park and Fort Lauderdale. So my story actually took place right down the street. I think this very same block where Julie Carson's house is. I don't know if anyone knows where Julie lives, but the same exact block, that building right over there. And so one day I was canvassing. Julie Carson called me and she said, "You should come and canvass, my block. Knock on the doors, introduce yourselves to people that live over here. I've already told them about you." And so when you're a candidate and you're going and you're knocking doors, you're talking to people, introducing yourself. So I decided that day to go into, I'm not sure what that condo's name is, to knock. It was around July 2020 in the primary. So we were just putting flyers on the door because of COVID. And so I was going pretty quickly, just putting door hangers on the doors. And this drunk, I'm sure he was drunk, guy just comes out of nowhere and he's like, "Get the fuck off the property. Get off the property, get off the property." And I'm like, "I have permission to be here." And he just pushed me down on the ground and he just got very, very aggressive. So the first thing I did was I called Julie Carson, and she came running out of her house. Michael Rayner came running out of his house. They live on the same block. And Wilton Manors police came and they were there in like a minute and a half. So this person was like very drunk, and the people at that condo at that time, they came down to me and they were telling me, you know, all these stories, like he gets in fights with his partners. He says a lot of racist things. He's the HOA board guy, just a Karen generally. And so this was right after the whole George Floyd situation. So I was already kind of like pissed off with like white people in general, I'm gonna be honest. And so when he did that, at first I'm like, I want him arrested and everything. Over time, I was like, okay, I don't think like putting him in jail is gonna solve it. He's just gonna come out more resentful. So I ended up not pressing any charges. And so I see him walking down the street, maybe a week or two later, because they reported on it in South Florida Gay News and in the Sun Sentinel. And so everyone in the whole city knew about it. And so when I saw him walking, he came up to me and he said, "You didn't have to blast me like that. That's, you know, what your type does. Make it all about race." And so the response that I got from a lot of people was, you know, this is Wilton Manors. You know, there's not a lot of racism here. We're all gay. We all understand oppression. And I'm like, just because a place is gay doesn't mean, you know, that you can't be racist. There's oppression in every community. I mean, me being here as a Black gay man, I know that sometimes we need to work on a lot of things within ourselves on how we treat people. And so the same as in the white gay community. I'm generally pleased with how the city handled it, the Wilton Manors police. They handled it very well. They wanted to arrest him. It was actually me at the end that was like, okay, we're not going to go back in. You know, he gets off on this, but I hope he doesn't do this to anyone else or conduct violence on anyone else. But the city handled it very well. City staff reached out. The candidates all reached out during that time. So I'm generally happy with the way the city handled it. But the fact that it has to happen at all, somebody told me, you know, a lot of people run for office here. Nothing usually ever happens to them. And I say, well, I'm probably the only Black person running in this city. Like, how many Black people do you see running in Wilton Manors? And this was for a House seat. And so just having that experience kind of scared me at that time. I ended up not canvassing anymore in Wilton Manors after that. I said, I don't feel safe coming here and canvassing, even though I spent a lot of my time here, a lot of my money here, lived here for a year. This is like a second home for me. I didn't want to canvass in the city anymore because of that. It was just very scary. I didn't want to run into anyone else. Or just the thought of, okay, what if that person had a firearm? Or what if the cops came and they actually came after me, even though I'm the victim in this situation? So it's a lot of rosy ideas out there about what Manors is like. We can do a lot better. We can listen to the Black voices that are already out there in the city when they're saying this is what's happening, whether it be at the bars and the restaurants, the nightclubs. A lot of violence go in there, a lot of racism in there too. All of us can tell you probably go to the Manor or go to a lot of these places and, you know, people are all up on you. You're what you guys said about you're so nice looking, this can't never happen. I mean, I've heard that 1,000 times in my life. It's like become like the second talk. Like, people are going to commit violence against you because you're Black. And, you know, white gay men unfortunately have this ideal in their head that, you know, they can commit violence, and because of someone's look and how they look, they should be able to just take that and accept that. And so I don't accept it. That's my story. I'm generally pleased with how Wilton Manors do it, but we need a culture change in Wilton Manors, a wake-up call where people need to pay more attention. And honestly, like, this room should have been full of white people in Wilton Manors. A discussion about race in Wilton Manors, it shouldn't just be the same faces that we see everywhere. There's a lot of people that come out when they hear events where there's alcohol and food and everything, but it should have been at this conversation here in this discussion.
I want to thank the survivors again. Thank you, Elijah, Sam, and Antonio, for sharing your stories. Sam spoke on some aspects that I want to touch on. You know, we wanted the survivors and these survivor stories to kick off our communication because we want to shed light on it. A lot of times people think because we're a progressive city that things like this do not happen, and that's just not true. We are a progressive city. We are a progressive group as the LGBTQ community. However, we do have our issues that we have to deal with, and one of them is sitting right here in front of your face, and that is racism and racial insensitivity and injustice. And I wanted people that actually experienced it to hear that one of one of our community members had to go into what is quote unquote considered a safe space and cry in the bathroom because he no longer feels safe. To know that one of our community members gave up possibly his bid for election and winning a campaign because he didn't feel safe in his own community is impactful. To hear that one of our community members actually was singing a song that was requested and in a safe space and was ridiculed for it because of the color of his skin or because of the color of the skin that people were that sing that song, is just unimaginable to some people, but just as they said here, it's imaginable for us, and it's real, and it does happen. And so that's why we wanted to definitely have the survivors, and I know that it's a sensitive story to tell. So again, we thank you guys for your bravery.
So I'd also like to add that folks don't understand, we talked on Queer News tonight about intersectionality. So all of our identities are inextricably linked. Wherever I walk into, I'm Black, I'm woman, I'm queer, I'm, the child of immigrants, all of those different things. So when someone can respond and say, in Wilton, like, you're gay, it's like not understanding that I'm gay and Black, right? I'm gay and these other different things. And sometimes people will see those other things before they even know that I'm gay, before they even know those other things about me. They see the Blackness first. We cannot help that Blackness when we walk into any space. I also want to add, because I know that a lot of these stories have happened at businesses, so also a city perspective is hearing a city official in a forum when asked about intentional diversity and inclusion of Black and brown people saying, I don't know what the problem is. We do a really good job. If you don't like it, you could just leave. And then having another city official ask me, well, do you feel unsafe in Wilton? And I said, I feel safe because I can walk down the street with my woman fiance and not be attacked for our gayness. But I've also been pulled over in Wilton for no reason and threatened to have my car searched in Wilton by the police department, right? So again, when we talk about the intersectionality, that those two things cannot be separated in the city of Wilton. And in a city that also has a really dense Haitian population, right? That should be included in the culture and the fabric of who this city is. Like, there's a lot of conversations that we need to have about what intention looks like and creating space looks like in the city. So to kick us off in that conversation, we're super excited to have Tatiana and Brayland here, who have a mic on their end. So they're going to introduce themselves and talk about their affiliation with Wilton, and then we have a couple questions for them.
Good evening, everyone. I am Tatiana Williams, the Executive Director and Co-Founder of Trans Inclusive Group. My pronouns are she, her, hers. We have a trans-led organization that's located in the rear of the Pride Center in Building B, and that's 104A, so any one of you that are interested in visiting. So we service the transgender community, in specific trans women of color or trans people of color, and our non-binary siblings. In terms of me being here, it's about being a voice for a community that is oftentimes not heard. But I also want to speak to, we keep talking about law enforcement and intentionality, the conversations I keep hearing. But for me, I think that I don't believe that I'm going to call out, but I want to use this opportunity to call in. And for me, we keep talking about law enforcement, and when we was organizing this panel, we didn't think, if we're going to talk about racism in Wilton Manors, not to have any representative from the Wilton Manors Law Enforcement Department. That's a question for me, right? So when we talk about intentionality, for me to have to kind of like force my way or talk about like, why wasn't me someone that served our Black community in this community? Why wasn't I approached in the onset of planning this particular town hall? Not only that, but we're talking about why isn't more people in the room, and we have organizations here that serve a population like Ujima. We should have been a part of this conversation before we even got here and just coming in like, oh, we're here to visit or be a part of this town hall. That's what intentionality looks like. Let me say that, right? So when we talk about all of the things that happen in our white community, when we're talking about the officials and what they're doing, let's be honest and open about the intentionality and how the structure in Wilton Manor was created. It wasn't created for us in our Black community and our communities of color to thrive. So we have to start at the beginning of that. When we talk about it, we have to talk about what does it look like for the city commission of Wilton Manors. Has there been anyone that was Black on the city commission of Wilton Manors? When we talk about it, we have to talk about what does that look like for businesses that are Black owned in Wilton Manors, right? How do you put something in place to help Black owners build business in Wilton Manors? If we're going to be intentional and bring that intersectionality into this community, we have to be intentional about that, and we have to start at the root of the community, not in the town hall. And to correct me if I'm wrong, is this a nonprofit organization? Okay, so we can move in the nonprofit structure because I do that very well, and it's very pretty. I love the cameras, I love all of that, and that's great, and I like all of that. But if we're going to create change, we have to be intentional from the start.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Braylon Brown. My pronouns are he, him. I am the current board president of Trans Inclusive Group located here in Wilton Manors. And I'm also the co-founder and co-director of the Smile Trust. Okay, the Smile Trust is a small but mighty organization that is fighting against housing insecurity and food insecurities. And we also do rapid response for natural disasters. And I'm here today because I live in the community in Tamarack, and I'm born and raised in Florida, but I will probably not come to Wilton Manors for anything unless I was coming for my group every Thursday at the Pride Center with Trans Inclusive Group. So that says a lot, right? First of all, there's nothing really for me to do, and when there was things for me to do, it was quickly taken away from us, and we can no longer do that. Tatiana touched on pretty much everything that she just laid it on the line. And if you don't understand that, she said it in plain English. We have work to do. And I do echo the sentiment that there are organizations that should have been here. Even though they make us uncomfortable, we have to have these uncomfortable conversations, because you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable first, right? So I hope that what we're saying doesn't fall on deaf ears. I also hope that this conversation will be an ongoing conversation, because it will take time, right? But it doesn't mean that we go at a snail's pace, because we already know what the problem is. So it's either we get to it or we are not going to get to it, but we definitely need to get to it right now, because what I can tell you is there is unrest, right? And when people are not feeling rested, and when people aren't feeling safe, there can be some backlash. Right? And we can expect backlash, but how are we going to handle that backlash? And then how do we include other people, other Black leaders, even if we don't mess with their organizations? How do we also include them in the conversation? Because we're talking about inclusive, right?
Thank you, Braylon and Tatiana. And before I move on to our next community panelist, I do want to address some of the concerns that were brought up in your introduction. You know, I'm not going to make excuses for how this event was planned. I will say that I do have a relationship with Ujima Men and the Trans Inclusive, and sometimes the way that you have to operate is in the way that is in the best for you to do so. I reach out to my community as much as possible. I see so many people in this room that I have reached out on multiple occasions to partner and do projects with, and sometimes I just have to go at it alone because it is the best option that I have for me. Just like the struggles that you've heard from our survivors and the individuals that you will hear when it comes to what they have to experience in the city, I too have to experience those things. And sometimes I have to act in a fashion and way that allows me to propel our goal as a community without getting it convoluted and certain things, but I will make the promise here today that I hear you, I understand you, and I will work intentionally to make sure that all of you feel included in the process. But I do need everyone to understand that you also need to hear and understand me and make me included in the process as well. You know, we're all here striving for the same goal, and I'm willing to work towards that goal with everybody in the room. And having you guys at the table means the world to me. And that table isn't just to invite you guys. In this moment, in this incident, it's what occurred, and I can say I apologize for it, even though I had to make this work. I told you I tried this, and this is going on 2 years that I finally was able to achieve this, you know? So that shows the work and effort that I had to put into it. So I know that it's important to make sure that everyone's at the table, and I will make it my due effort to include you guys in everything that I do and see how you guys can help me uplift our community and get to the goal that we're all striving for. With saying that, I also want to bring another voice to the table, our community panel, which is Anthony Wynn, someone that has really been a person of just support and commitment to our organization. Like Jeff Sterling mentioned earlier, he has helped us with the Black Excellence Stage. He was at the forefront of the Black Excellence Stage. He has been there in most challenges that we have. One of the things that we did in the height of race tensions in 2020 was a rally for a remedy, which was a march on Wilton Drive that dealt with racism and injustice, and that was led by Anthony Wynn. And when I say led, it was not only him that basically spearheaded it, but it was him that brought it to the table for us to actually achieve. One thing that stands out mostly for me in these conversations and understanding of where we lie in respect to what's going on is that a lot of times what you see that happened here, what's shown to you, is not as easy as it was to bring it all together. There was conflict in doing a march as well. It was almost shuttered and not done because of the interfighting that was going on. And I was one of the people that were brought in to step in to say, hey, let's smooth this over, let's get this done. And there were multiple community leaders at the table during that time. And it was almost gone. Something that all of us strive to fight for was almost gone. And something that Anthony Wynn worked so hard because someone came up to him and said, listen, you know, I've had some racist incidences in Wilton Manors, and during this time, I just want to make sure that we can speak up about it. And that's what propelled him to take on the task. And him doing it in good favor for our community was almost destroyed. So to have someone at this panel who understands what it looks like internally to have to deal with those fights, I welcome you, and I also turn the mic to you.
Thank you, JB. How's everybody doing? Good. I got a question to ask you all. How many business owners do we have in here that have businesses in Wilton Manor? So we only have 2-3 businesses representing your business here in Wilton Manor. From Dixie all the way to where? Sunrise? And we only have 2 businesses here. Do we have anybody from the Wilton Manor Police Department? Do we have anyone here from City Hall? That, ladies and gentlemen, is the problem. All right. And the fact that we have something as important as what we have going on right now, and the fact it's one thing not to have it be wall-to-wall people in here. It should be. We should have no empty seats. We should have no standing room. But it's a whole different matter that the very businesses that we patronize, the very businesses that we give our revenue to, the very businesses that we are responsible for keeping their lights on are not even here for a matter as important as this. I can sit here and talk about the fact that we're not safe in a safe haven. I can sit here and talk about the fact that the oppressed are also doing the oppressing. But what catches my attention is the fact that all of us have had issues with businesses, and the businesses are not even here. And we've had issues with law enforcement, and law enforcement is not even here. That's a problem. That's a real problem. I personally have had as a businessman, I run Anthony Wynn Entertainment. I'm one of the local promoters. And originally, I've been living here for 7 years, about 7.5 years now. Originally, I'm from Detroit and grew up and was raised in Detroit and was on the police department in Detroit. But Detroit, Michigan, in and of itself, despite some of the things that you all have heard about Detroit, it's a progressive Black African-American city. It's very aggressive, heavily Democratic, but the Black base there are involved in literally every aspect of the city in and of itself, from politics, government, businesses, school, education, police department, etc. So coming to Florida was a little bit of a culture shock to me when I came down and saw something completely the opposite of that. It was also therefore a shock to me because I also used to do business as a club event promoter in Detroit, that there is a bar in Wilton Manor that I sought to do an event at. And I'm not going to call the bar out because the person who owns the bar now is different from the person that I dealt with some years ago. But they were interested once I contacted them, and we talked a little bit of business, and I, of course, went over my tallies and numbers and books and so forth. And they were rather quiet. The first question that they asked, they didn't ask anything about revenue or projected revenues. They didn't ask any questions about as to whether or not, would we be interested in doing something in the future? And can we see your books or anything to that effect? Their first question to me was, what kind of clothes do your people wear? That was their first question to me. That was my first experience with doing business in Wilton Manor. Now, I've never shied away from continuing to do business. I've done, events at what is now Lit. I've done events at even the Venue and so on throughout Wilton Manor. And of course, I have participated and of course have the stage, as Jeff brought out, for the Stonewall. But that was my first experience. And ever since then, everything that I've done in Wilton Manor has been intentional because we deserve it. We deserve it, exactly. But at the same time, where are these businesses? Where are more residents? How many people what's the population of Wilton Manor? Does anyone know? How much? 12,000. We got 0% of 12,000 population in this room. That's a problem. And this is a problem that has to be addressed. It has to be dealt with. This is not something that we need to be doing right now just because it feels good, because it's Black History Month. None of that bullshit. This is something that has to be continuous. If we're going to do this, if we spent that time and the gas and the energy to come here, it doesn't just stop here. We just don't come here, eat up the food, feel good about ourselves because we are here, and then don't do shit else. That makes absolutely no sense. And of all that's what we do, we just breathing up the oxygen in here and wasting our time. So I hope something comes from this. I hope this is I thought some years ago when we did the rally that something was going to come from it. It got worse. Nothing came from it. It was a historical event. It was symbolic, at that particular time. And the impression was we were going to bounce from there and change things in Wilton Manor. What happened? It got worse. The incidents that you all were survivalists of, this took place after the march. So things actually got progressively worse. So we just can't, be here kumbaya and shit and don't do nothing after this. That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense at all. Okay? So I'm here because my hope is that something becomes of this and that we move forward. That's my hope. All right? But let not this be in vain.
To the three of you, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what could the city do? Like, what are some either initiatives or projects or a starting point to be more intentionally inclusive? And Tatiana would like to start with you.
I think that the city, as I spoke about earlier, I think the city can be more intentional in helping Black business owners be a part of the culture of this city. And that looks like being intentional, helping them to develop businesses in this city. Do we have something in place that can support them financially to be able to have businesses in this city? Because I know that the rent in Wilton Manors is high, right? But if this city really wants inclusion, and if they really want Black folks in here, we don't necessarily have the resources as the other counterparts, and I'll say it here, these rich white men, right? But you want us to be in here and you want our dollars, right? So if you want our dollars, ensure that our people have equity in this community. That's what we can do here in Wilton Manors.
Period. Period. Wilton Manors is now the center of $1 million homes. So, period. Around these businesses. So, what we're gonna do now is transition. A lot of us have talked about we want a resolution. We want some ideas. We want this conversation to spur something beyond this moment. So we are going to transition to our city officials, and then after that, also a couple of our businesses. So Mayor Scott Newton is not here. Commissioner Chris Caputo is here. Thank you. And Commissioner Don DiArmenio, which is our newest commissioner here in Wilton Manors. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. The question that we have for you is, after hearing all of these different things, the incidents, the ideas, what do you think? I'm going to change that question. Not what do you think? What will you do following this conversation to make Wilton Manors more intentionally inclusive and beyond welcoming to Black and brown folks, to Black folks, beyond welcoming, but to actually create space?
Okay, well, thank you for having me here tonight, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here and to lend whatever support I can. I just became a city commissioner 3 months ago, but I'm not new to the city. I've been here for 15 years. I spent 6 years on our city's planning and zoning board, and it gave me a really thorough understanding of our city code, which is both a blessing and a curse. When I was on the Planning and Zoning Board, I became vice chair, board chair, and I tried to make some changes to our city code that, quite frankly, were not welcomed. And we have to take a step back and look at the demographics. If I look at Fort Lauderdale, our Black population is about 30%. If I look at Wilton Manors, our Black population is under 7%. It's a problem. And why is that? What can we do? Are there things we can do? I believe there are. And I don't believe that, I think that we need some changes to our city code to make it more inclusive, to make it more affordable for folks to move into. I believe we have an affordable housing crisis. I've spoken with our city manager about it. I've asked for a workshop because I had ideas, and I do understand the city code from being on the Planning and Zoning Board for 6 years. I certainly think there are changes that we can make. I feel like, I hate to say it, but I think there's been an unwillingness to make some of those changes in our city, and I'm being very honest. So when I ran for city commission, I had a lot of opposition. I did not have the support of all the city commissioners. And I felt like I was trying to make changes that, I don't know that they were welcomed, but there certainly are things that we can do, and I will certainly push for them. So that's my promise.
thank you for having me. I appreciate being a part of discussions like these. I'll be really honest, they're incredibly uncomfortable because I always, rightfully so, have my ass handed to me about something I didn't know that I should have known, right? That's just the reality. Like most things I walk into, I know I'm going to leave that night feeling like, man, I hit a home run. I know that conversations like this, which are difficult, I'm going to leave being like, well, I'm an asshole and there's a lot of shit I should have known that I don't know. And that's just the reality of it. But that's why I show up, because you got to learn sooner or later, right? Because you're not making progress otherwise. Some of these problems are so massive, and how to solve them. And so I don't have those answers. Just like I have none of the experiences that were described on the panel today. I can't relate. I don't get it. That's never happened to me. I can't imagine that happening here. It's that absurd. But I also can get that happens here, right? I get very much. This is a town of people that look like me. That's what is, right? It's not their fault that they're here, but it's our fault if we're going to claim to be an inclusive city that we be an inclusive city. That's just the reality of it, right? So there's a lot of things I've tried and failed. There's some things that I've tried that seem in a very small way to be working, which is that I reach out to people who don't look like me, to people of color, like whether business owners, young people, older, whatever it is, to say, this is what I'm thinking. This is how I'm interpreting this. What don't I know? Because that's always what it is. It's what I don't know. I don't know the experience. I don't know just the things that you know that I need to know, right? And so I involve them in decision making. And it's been surprising to me times when there was an opinion about something we were doing that I'd be like, well, I don't know why a person of color would have a different opinion than a white person on that. But again, I don't have that experience. So now I've learned more often I have to ask. I've also had to position myself. I've had to, the word intentional came up a lot, right? I had to be really intentional about certain things. And I'm going to mention some of those things. I'm not looking for like, check mark, congratulations, you did it, you win the award. But I say them because I'm acknowledging what I do, and I know that someone will tell me what I'm still missing in that process, and so I'm going to add to the list, right? But I've financially sponsored, the cookout, right? And I've been assistance of. In the first year, I helped secure the location. I paid for the location that they ended up being at. I'm not looking for a pat on the back, like we have work to do, right? But someone has to show up and do that work. I continue to work with the people of color in this community that from what I can tell, and I use that in air quotes, seem to be leaders that seem to know what I don't know, just to get their input on things. But I'll be real honest, I have fucked up some shit by supporting some people that I thought were leaders of the Black community that turned out like were not helpful overall, right? But I don't know that because I don't know what I don't know, right? So I've made some mistakes over time in doing that. But I think for me, just the one thing that we need to do is continue that conversation. I also think this will be a counter statement is we also need to be realistic. Like we need more Black businesses. We also need more trans-owned businesses. We also need more women-owned businesses. And I'm not against, as a white person who owns businesses, I'm not saying we need less white business owners, but we need more of everything else, right? And so I'm sensitive to the idea of carving out just one population and saying, we're just doing this for you. I'm fine with the idea of excluding and saying, okay, we generally speaking don't need to give a grant to a rich white man. I think we all can agree on that. But there are a variety of queer, lesbian, there's a variety of populations we don't serve properly in this inclusive city. So I love to find the solution that serves all of them, right? Or is open to all of them. That isn't, necessarily serving the rich white gay man. So that's what I'm open to. And I come to conversations like this to learn what those suggestions are, but also to share that feedback that I wouldn't produce something that is narrowly cut out for, there's so much intersectionality in our community that I would hate to carve it down to one community because I think we're not serving everybody that needs to be included.
I wanna follow up that. So, and I hear that. So when I think about intention, we all have saw the graphic with all of the people looking over the gate, and they have a block here for the tall man and a little one for the short man. Some of you probably seen it, but I see it a lot. So in that graphic, that's what that intention looks like. And I think we move in a way like if we're doing something for one community that we have to do it for the other. And when we're talking about marginalized communities, that's what that intention looks like. That means intentionally making sure that that community has that equity, right? And that looks like maybe this person over here don't get anything, and making sure that we utilize those resources to uplift that community that is suffering. That's what that looks like. And I think when we're moving in places like in this community, that we think like if I do something here, I have to do something over here, and I have to do something over here, and I have to make it equitable for everyone. But I don't think we intentionally look at equity as what I've seen. We don't talk about the things that happens in this community, and equity doesn't just stop with businesses. It stops with organizations that even harm our Black community and our Black workers that are working in these communities. There's a lot of work that needs to happen, and I think it's layered, and we have to have those conversations on an ongoing basis. And we're speaking to Elijah running for office in Wilton Manors. What does that look like with people getting behind him to support him to be a part of this community and be able to get to that space to be a part of the Wilton Manors Commission? What does that look like? So we have to come together, not only, and I'm not going to just put this on the backs of our white counterparts, but us as a people, as Black people, we have to come together and make sure that our people are in these spaces and support them.
That's right.
So that means Elijah has to move to Wilton, so that's great. Welcome to Square Miles. Apparently we're all neighbors. I mean, let's run it for a commission. Let's do it. I think Tatiana brought up a really good point about equity and businesses, and we know that the land that houses The Alchemist, for example, was intended to be an incubator for small businesses. What could that look like, or is that even possible to have a space that allows for the incubation of businesses that are not rich and white? So even if that doesn't just stop at here's the incubator for Black businesses, but to your point, women. I said to someone the other day, I said to Carvel the other day, that I don't think the men in Wilton Manors realize that there is no place for women or femmes to buy clothes on the drive unless you go to out of the closet. Right? Like, there's a lot of underwear, there's a lot of swimsuits, there's a lot of tank tops, there's a lot of booty shorts. Like, there are so many copy pastes of men's stores. And as a resident of Wilton Manors, me and my house, we got to go to Target. We got to go to Target. So it's like something even that simple that your privilege would not allow you to see because it's right there for all of you. Like, what could the city commit to doing that creates that space that allows for people to get that leg up?
So I'm really clear, right, that I had a leg up. You know, my rent on my new business is $5,000 a month. And that's just ridiculous, right? And I can't tell a commercial landlord, you must lower your rent. It's just against Florida law. It's also not fair to them, but it's a real problem system because now the rich are getting richer and everyone else is sort of left behind, right? You know, I have personally provided funding for Black-owned businesses in our community because I know that they don't have the experience, the track record through no fault of their own to walk into the bank and get a loan, right? That's there, right? So, you know, we do our part, and I still know for, in this case, these two businesses, it's going to be an uphill battle for them anyways, because there's all this education and opportunity that I had access to that they still don't have. So it's still shitty, right? Let's just call it what it is. It's shitty. It is what it is, you know? But it doesn't mean you still got to make some incremental progress wherever it is. The thing that I am interested in, and I appreciate that you're willing to acknowledge, like, that's good. Let's make something for women. Let's make something for trans, queer, whatever that looks for, straight even, you know? Straight is kind of treated as a minority in this community, actually. So what I have wanted to see is, and I brought it up before, and I think, you know, there's new people on the commission who have some, and I'm not speaking about anyone else, but some people have more progressive opinions that, you know, that may be sitting here than others do, right? And they all have great ideas, but this is just, you know, things are, I think, changing. I have wanted to have an incubator space. We have space that is unused in the city of Wilton Manors. I love for it, like a space like, thank you, Bill, thank you for pointing that out, a space like this. We should have desks set up here, and we should let any small organization, one or two people, you know, that you're just getting started, kickstart it here. And I let all that be free, and not for nothing. I am a business person. When you're successful, sharing your success without the city, but in the meanwhile, do it, right? Something good will come of that, right? And then to have all these people that are all hustling to make something happen, they're all going to work with one another, right? And just selfishly, from a city point of view, let's have all these businesses start here or nonprofits start here. Let's have them get wildly successful, because who are they going to love? The city of Wilton Manors that made that possible, right? And I think that's to me, it's such a no-brainer. You have a space that sits empty. You have brilliant, hardworking hustlers of any age who are willing to put in the freaking work, right? Give them a space to do something and share in the success. And to me, that's just a no-brainer. We're not there yet at the city. It's my job to help. It's our job to help push us there, right? But it means we need voices together to talk about those kind of things. To me, it's easier to do something like that, to say, let's give a person of color who just needs a meeting space, right? Who just needs some access to, give them what is not costly to us, but makes a big difference for them. It's very hard for me to give somebody a $10,000, let me pay your rent for a year. To help one business, let me pay your rent for 1 year. That does something for one person. But you could do something in this room for a co-working space this size would support 50 people. If we have 50 businesses starting up here, what's the change? How do we change wealth for a community that otherwise wouldn't have access? Because frankly, rich white people, they would have no problem renting nice space, some expensive downtown space, right? Let's let bootstrappers who are willing to put in the work do it, and be a part of that.
Thank you. Before we get to you, Elijah, I do want to, we're talking a lot about businesses and what that looks like. I want to bring the two business owners and organization lead into the conversation and see how they can lend an understanding of what they're doing and how it relates to the intentionality and inclusivity and diversity within their organizations and company. Mike from the pub, do you want to start off?
I prefer to stand up because I look skinnier. So, and I don't need a mic. First of all, I'm Mike Cannell, co-owner of the pub on Wilton Drive. I bought into the pub 5 years ago. And whenever I bought into the pub, I was the vice president prior to that for Marshall. And one of the things that I learned is being the vice president of Marshall is if you want to be successful in today's environment, you have to be diverse. And whenever I bought the pub, I had 2 or 3 goals in mind. I wanted to be, and I always used to tell my people that work for me, if you aren't the lead dog, the view is always the same. So when I told my team when we first bought the pub is, I want our club to be known as a place where everyone is welcome, where diversity is a big issue for us to grow our business. And I'd like to share something real quick with you. 5 years ago when I bought in the pub, it was 2 weeks away from going out of business. 5 years ago when I bought the pub, they had 12 employees. Today, the pub is one of the busiest businesses on the drive, and we got 55 employees. But you know what makes that business have 55 employees? I can tell you, 53% of our employees are diverse. We have Latinos, we have blacks, we have bisexual, we have transgender, we have all types of associates, and that is what has made the pub successful. We do not tolerate any disrespect of any race, creed, or kind. And I want to personally, again, it's probably one of the things that's bothered me one of the most that sits on in the pub, and you can imagine there's a lot of drama all the time, a lot of drama. And one of the things that's really bothered me, and this is from my heart, it's not trying to make you like me any better or like the pub any better. It still bothers me that I own the business, that one of the best entertainers, or 2 of the best entertainers in Fort Lauderdale and around the area were, offended by that conversation in my place of business. You know what? Our manager threw them out immediately. And so the next week in our meeting, let me tell you what the pub did about this. As I said, I took it serious. We got a hold of our insurance company, and really kind of not just we, they reached out to us in previous conversations about how can we help your business run better. They come up with a test Not a test, it was a test, a thing for all of our management people, all 6 of our management people, they put together for us, and they asked us, and they gave us things, this is what you look for. And when people come into your bar, is the person loud, is the person, you know, someone you've never seen before, all different type of red flags. And we had to take a test at the end, and our managers, after it wasn't a 1-hour test, this was a 3-hour thing that we had to go through. And our insurance company, you know what they did? They said, you do this and we'll help you lower your insurance rates. So it was a 2-thing advantage, and businesses should take advantage of that today with their insurance. Our managers were happy about it, but the point is that we continue to be a diverse bar and continue to know that we are not here to just take from the community but give back. And, you know, I'm here to tell you today, we do not take diversity for granted. You know, we absolutely know it's what we need to do to run a business. And, you know, because again, I can't tell you enough how sorry I am it happened at our bar, you know, but we will not stand for that in that diversity part. And when people being, you know, treated this time, I don't care who you are. You know, I don't care who you are. I've been discriminated before, but you know what? I'm a white guy. Think about if you're black, like you're sitting here. You don't know you have to deal with you're gay or you're straight, but you're black, you know. And that's, you know, you think you've been discriminated against, I've been discriminated against, walk in someone else's shoes. And I've learned that all the years in working with people, is that don't judge people until you walked in their shoes and know what they're doing. And once again, everyone is welcome at the pub, and we will continue to support this drive and not just coming and talking. Anything we can do, and I think, you know, we've helped a couple of events you guys have had, the HotSpots with, you know, with the new thing you put out, and that's where we're going. Yep.
Can I ask a question? Your message of diversity is good for business, crystal clear. Anthony Wynn's challenge in terms of business representation of this. Why do not more business owners think and act exactly the way you act?
You know, I can't speak for them, but I would only say, to answer your question, I would ask you to ask them, look at where the pub was and look where the pub is for supporting diversity. That's the answer I would give them that. You know, I hear you, and I wish I could say, you know, you do this, but you got to believe in it, and you got to feel it, and you got to want it. You know.
Thank you, Mike. Gary, as the president of WIMBA, Wilton Manors Business Association, what efforts have you guys done in regards to diversity and inclusion?
First, I'd like to say thank you very much for the invitation to be here tonight and to participate in the conversation. I think my role as a cisgendered white man is to listen, hear, and go to action. I will tell you that I've only been the president of the Business Association for a very short time, a few months now, and I've only actually been on the board for about a year. And I can tell you, I walked into the boardroom the first time, and it was pretty much all white people. Actually, it was all white people, and predominantly all men. And I said, is this really representative of the business culture here? I've met with you, I've met with Jasmine, et cetera, and said, you know, what can we do to help and be a part of? And I think that that's a conversation that continues to go on. We have very difficult conversations. We've had events over the last few months since I've been at the helm. There was an event about a week ago that talked about substance abuse. And I remember reaching out to different community partners and saying, hey, let's have a conversation about substance abuse because it does affect your community. It affects our whole community. And they said, is that really something that we should really get behind? Because this person was involved with sex work, this person was involved with porn, this person was involved with drugs, and has turned his life around and is an attorney today in San Francisco and wrote a book about his whole experience. But I can tell you, I had conversations with multiple people that said, are we really going to have this conversation here in Wilton Manors? Are we really going, as the business association, going to get behind that? Or as a mental health organization, get behind that? And I said, yes, it's an important conversation that we have to get, because when we have those hard and difficult conversations, change happens. And I will tell you, we had a room that was just about the same size as this. And you know what? There should have been 300 more people at that meeting or at that conversation that happened 2 weeks ago. I will tell you, I will do my part and dedicate the work that I'm doing. I'm officially retired. My brother has a business here in Fort Lauderdale. We have a lot of clients that we work with in the Wilton Manors community. But I will do my part to listen, to help, and also to make a change, to make Wilton Manors a more inclusive, welcoming, and diverse city.
Is it okay if I exit? So what exactly does the business association does? Do you work with the businesses that are in Wilton Manors? What does that look like?
I can tell you what they've done in the past, and I can tell you the conversations that we're having today to make the Wilton Manors Business Association more welcoming and accepting to all businesses. I will tell you, the Business Association's been around since the 1950s. It's one of the oldest organizations in Wilton Manors. I will tell you, it's gone through lots of change. And, you know, I would say a year ago, they had once every month or every other month a conversation at lunch, and the business 50 people probably got together and had lunch, and then they had a cocktail hour, and then they put out a directory once a year. That was probably their responsibility. I will tell you that that's great to have those lovely happy hours and it's the same people that would show up every single time at those meetings, and I'm not exactly sure what the use of it was, but I said, you know, we need to do more. We need to help and support. And I can tell you, I've had some of the conversations about creating spaces for diverse communities to be able to thrive in the business community. I've sat down with Mr. Camuto, I've sat down with the city manager and said, you know, we need to utilize whatever we can, because right now, there are lots of risks to the businesses. So I think our responsibility today is to really look at who the business community is today, what the business community is going to be in the future, support the business community that's here today, and also look at the risks that are associated. There are all kinds of risks associated with business. This conversation today is a risk to business owners. I'm embarrassed that there are 3 business owners at this conversation. When Jameer reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you participate in the business?" I said, "Absolutely. It's our role, and it's what we need to do." But I'm embarrassed that there's 3 businesses that showed up here today. There are some board members that are participating here. I know that have participated that are part of the Wilton Manors Business Association. But I will tell you that, you know, I think it's really important for us to continue to have those conversations, to continue to advocate for and continue to uplift people of color, people of the trans community, et cetera, all underserved members of our community.
You had something.
Okay. I'm just going to steal this mic over here. Sorry, I'm going to stay in Fort Lauderdale. I love the city. I love Manors too, but I think Dean will kill me if I move. So here's what I'll say about regarding affordable housing issue. What will the city of Wilton Manors do to bring in younger people, younger professionals who want to move into the city? I mean, I know I'm like the Gen Z guy up here, so I can speak for my generation and saying like the affordable housing crisis is really just standing on our necks, like holding us down. I mean, I know people 24, 25 who can't even leave their parents' house right now. They're working and maybe probably making $3,000 a year, maybe $50,000, $60,000, but they can't afford, you know, they can't afford to live in a city like Wilton Manors. A lot of younger professionals are moving to Oakland Park, they're moving to Pompano, they're moving to other places, but they want to be in Wilton Manors. They want to live here. A lot of them work here, but they can't afford to live here. And so I think a lot of that conversation regarding housing and how we move Wilton Manors forward, because a lot of those younger folks are people of color, they're Black, and some of them want to start businesses in the city. I know we have a few that own businesses in the city of Wilton Manors, but what steps would a city of Wilton Manors take to bring in younger people to be residents of the city, business owners, and attract a younger clientele as well?
Thanks, Elijah. Appreciate the question. And I got to tell you, I am with you. And these are some of the challenges and really the reasons that I ran for city commission. I do not agree with a lot of our city code, and other members of the commission are aware of that. I've tried to make some changes, and at this point, they really haven't been welcomed. But I think a lot of the issues, our code, our city code is our Bible, and it's what developers need to do in order to build. And a lot of it is very difficult. I don't feel it's all necessary. It drives up the cost of building, which drives up the rents. And I think that we need to make some changes. So I'm just one here. There's 5 members of the commission. I know Commissioner Caputo has been very supportive of some changes also, but we do not have consensus from our entire commission to make changes that I believe that we need. Again, the one thing I've asked for is to have an affordable housing workshop, so I think maybe we can discuss that and try to figure out ways to make it more affordable. You know, when there was a code change last year, and we have probably 1,000 units coming into our city, all new construction. And none of those are going to be affordable housing. None of those will be, and I don't even want to call it affordable housing, none of those will be attainable housing. These are all private developments, and our city code allows them to build these without providing for what I'll call attainable housing. It's really not something that I support, and I think we could do a better job. So I'm with you on that, but and I encourage everyone to talk to the other members of the commission. You know, everyone needs to do their part here, and you know, I'm just one, but we need to make your voices heard to the other members of the commission. I think that's important. Oh, I didn't know you had a question.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We like you. Mr. Caputo, thank you for your honesty. Thank everybody on this board. Mr. Wynn, thank you so much for advertising. That's the reason why I'm here tonight. Tatiana, you said everything right for people who look like me. For those who may feel the same, I would like to get an understanding of the same thing too. First of all, the Republican governor, and they're running all Republican down the state, is the problem. What a lot of people don't know is that the state of Florida has a housing affordability budget in which they have dipped into, because I myself have had a conversation with the governor's executive assistant to where she stopped communicating with me, because you would look at me and think I don't know. So much for judgment. I don't have to be a loud voice here, but I sit in my home and I actually advocate and deal with a lot of CEOs, a lot of people in executive positions, a lot of politicians, even the White House. Had the White House's number on speed dial. I had to learn a lot when I couldn't afford my rent. You understand? And I lived in days when I come from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, being black and gay, where they didn't, my white friend, we moved down here, we lived right down the street. They didn't stop me at the door, but they stopped me. I remember when they stopped playing black music because they didn't want us in there. When I moved here from Cleveland, Ohio in 2010, I experienced the same thing. Over there at your good old, where y'all work at, what is it again? No, not the pub. Not the pub. I brought you for the alibis. I knew automatically when I was there trying to talk to people who were not black, those Latino men, those white men, anything other, but they want us for sex though. And as soon as you turn them down, I'm all kind of niggers and this and that, and fuck you, how dare you turn me down, me and all my privilege. And I'm now 50 years old, and I fought very hard to get here before I turned 40 to get out of that depressing place of Ohio. And I've seen a lot. And I had this shirt specially made when y'all first started having your Juneteenth here, what, 2 years ago? Yeah. But it starts with that Republican governor all the way down. Again, I had to reach out to the governor's office about that affordable housing budget that they had, multi-million dollars that they were dipping in the pot and using that money for other things. It's a whole plague. And now this state, specifically Southern Florida, is flooded with rich people, most of them not black, coming from across the country, around the world, don't even live here. Even the rental property that I live in. Russian white man, he don't even know what he's doing, but guess who he calls for help? not a homeowner. Black people don't live in Wilton Manors because they cannot afford to buy those expensive homes. Out of the closet, the price is outrageous. I donated some things the other day. Now a piece of used furniture, $400 when I can go buy some brand new. Because the people who patronize those businesses are not mostly black people. I used to. But the people who are privileged that are non-black, and that includes the Latinos too, they have a lot of privilege here, and I've seen that. And these white men love Latinos, and Latinos learn that. And they're taught not to date us. Because you can't bring us on rolling good between 12 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to the family reunion. You better say it. No matter how educated, how much, and the thing that I do, if you were to follow me, the places I get to go to a lot of very rich places. You understand? I go to some very high-end places because I learn, and that's the business that I'm in. I don't live like it because after some time I have to go home to my little apartment. But I've seen a lot down here. But it starts with your Republican government. How can you be Republican and vote? How can you be gay and vote Republican? And a lot of black people did not vote. So they voted Republican. Thank you, man. Your black ass is wondering why when you sit there getting kicked the hell out, and you got stuck in the middle of the night, who decided to go? I'm telling you, I've seen a lot in my time. I've seen a lot. So, there's only so much you could do, Commissioner, because this situation is much greater than you. And Mr. Cathedral, we applaud you for your efforts. It starts with that governor who's now privileged. He's in the second term. He could care less. You ought to see the Don't Say Gay and all the other type of things going on.
So we're gonna thank you for that. So it's the Sadowski Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So you can look it up and see what's happening. So we're gonna get to next steps in just a second. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Just point one thing out.
Hold on 1 second, Mike, because what we're going to do is we're going to have Antonio. We have time for one question because we're going to pick one from the jar. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, how are the African American Caribbean Blacks able to obtain business ownership just as all of the non-Black current LGBTQ business owners in Wilton Manors? There are no gay Black businesses which breeds exclusion on many levels. So I think that for me, this is a perfect segue into part of what we've talked about, but also the next steps. So I wrote down a couple things that have been mentioned. Number one, the offer of space, right? Like, how do we transform space? For those that produce events, for those that have businesses, you know that your number one cost is your space. The venue is what is the biggest hurdle to be able to produce and be creative. So what I hear is that there's a commitment to figuring out what are innovative ways that we can use some of this Wilton Manors space. I also heard that Trans Inclusive is also looking for some space. So we're going to make some connections so we can have some conversations going on about what that looks like to amplify. Well, you know, I heard some offers from this end of the table, so we're going to connect them and see what we can make shake in Wilton Manors. I also love this incubator talk, right? Like, how does the city support, again, with so much, there's 12,000 people here. We have a lot of parks in our little 2 square miles. We have a lot of venues in our 2 square miles. I would love to be a part of a conversation about incubating small businesses, about more co-working spaces in Wilton Manors, right? Things like that. And then also, again, making the connection. What I also hear as a part of our accountability at HotSpots, but also from the city, is more coalition building, right? There's so many people, so many organizations that are not in this room that should be a part of this conversation from the beginning, from the outset, and then also this desire to keep it going, right? So beyond this meeting right here, what is the workshop that folks in this room who are interested, that are Black organization leaders, Black business owners, can be a part of and have direct contact with the city, direct contact with the police department, direct contact with key stakeholders about issues as they come up, and not waiting for Black History Month, and then also developing and innovating together. And then I know I have a commitment to making sure all of y'all are connected, right? Because that's also a part of the accountability, is the communication, making sure that, you know, if Tatiana has a problem with somebody down at the city, she's got a commissioner's number to be able to get something handled. So that sounds like some solid next steps when we talk about how are we able to incubate Black businesses, women businesses, all these other businesses to truly show Wilton Manors, to show and prove Wilton Manors as an inclusive city. Commissioner, do you want to respond?
Yeah, so I love that. I love people that are very, what is the action step, right? Because we have these great discussions and they often just fall a little short of the action step, right? Obviously, I'm a big, and I've been a long believer in the incubator space because I started my business in the first of several businesses in an incubator space, right? So I'm going to put a request out there, and you can be accepted or not accepted, which is I'm happy to put on the agenda of a commission meeting that we have space that's underutilized. It should become an incubator. My ask, and it only works if the other party is received. Like I'm still a fool, but I was more of a fool earlier, and I thought just when it's on the commission thing, you have a couple of people show up and speak at public comment, and it's going to convince my fellow commissioners, no, that backfires in your face. It doesn't work that way. So I can put it on the agenda, but it means you need to ask for meetings with my other commissioners, some of which you already know are supportive, and say, hey, I hear this is coming up. Where do you stand on it? Because you taking your time to meet with them and say what you're working on, that gets them behind it. Because if it doesn't go that way, it just gets shut down and it goes to shit. But as someone, by the way, I own a house in Wilton Manors. I have 2 businesses, both of which do fine. I could not afford myself to live in Wilton Manors if I had to buy my house today. But to me, the only way to solve for that is to create more wealth, right? Because I can't buy down the price of a house for every person in this room. But if we can start turning 20 employees into 50 employees, and we can create some Black-owned businesses that have 50 employees, now we're creating some wealth. So it's not going to happen as quick as we all want, but it's a permanent solution. And I think an incubator is one thing. So I'd love to get your commitment, the room's commitment, to have those kind of meetings if we put it on an agenda.
I mean, if it's one thing I know about Tatiana, Braylon, and Elijah, is they going to show up.
I just wanted to
create a Black coalition for Wilton Manors so we can be able to have those conversations, because I'm all about disruptive advocacy, and you all can tell. So, I come shake all tables. That's what got me here. I actually get paid to do that. So I say that to say, I think we can create something. Sorry, I think we can create something that will be able to do that and have those conversations. And then when we need to show up to, where we have to show up to, Chris.
Absolutely. So I wrote that down as a next step, also a Black coalition for Wilton.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one item also to what Tatiana said. I think you were looking for funds from Wilton Manors, that's always difficult, but there is like the Urban League of Broward County that really helps Black businesses. They do have, I believe they have funds available, housing available. So sometimes we need to look beyond the city also and tap on those other resources. There's also the Black businesses of Broward County, Black-owned businesses in Broward County, and we can also tap on them to see if there's any availability for space in our city for any of them. So I think we need to also look just beyond the city. There are, county always has a lot more funds than someone like our city does.
I would also say, go ahead.
So I think in that, and I'm all for that, but I think that we can also have those conversations, because I've been in many places and I've been a part of many donor spaces, and like some of those rich white men that only support rich white men, what does that look like supporting the other counterparts that need, like having those conversations outside of those other places with right fans. Right. I'm sorry.
And I mean, I would also say as a creative, never apologize. As a creative solution is like, for example, a place like Historic Richardson, that's like, 5 days a year, we will offer that free of charge to a nonprofit organization.
Okay, well, just to talk about that, that's something that my partner Mark and I worked on last year with the Director of Parks and our city manager, and a nonprofit can utilize a space for free, like a space like this, Richardson, if it's part of what they call cultural programming. So for example, if you wanted to do an art exhibit, if it's open to the public, there's no ticket charge, you can use this space. I spoke with Nick about that from the Trans Inclusive Group to make him aware of it, that if they want to use that space, there are opportunities available. And it's relatively new, so a lot of organizations really don't know about that. Right. Like, for example, we brought back The World AIDS Museum had an exhibit. We had a Keith Haring exhibit over at one of our facilities, and it was free. It was open to the public, and that was a way, World AIDS Museum is one of the museums that left our city because of rents, and that was an opportunity to bring them back and give them a free space to utilize. So Terry's shaking his head. Right. He's aware of it. Right. Terry Dyer's here tonight from World AIDS, and Terry just received a proclamation from our city. Congratulations to Terry. And I also saw Lorenzo Robertson. Is he still here? Yeah. There's Lorenzo in the back. Lorenzo just received a proclamation from our city, so congratulations to both of you.
Right. And quick correction, Nick's pronouns are they, them, so thank you for that. I would also like to say Mike from CAB also has funding available yearly that nonprofits can apply for events within the city.
Right. We do have...
Briefly, Mike.
If you have a project, for instance, Jasmine served on community affairs, as does Carmel, who is here in Robert County, she was black women appointed by the commission to serve on the board. And they've done significant things, but Jasmine initially came up with the Caribbean Pride Fest that started a discussion at the camp and then led to working with HotSpots. I wanted to mention that Cardell wrote the criteria for women during Black History Month, and the commission has recognized Terry this past month, Lorenzo, who's involved in Ujima, we also this year recognized J.T. Tucker Blade, a black business owner in Wilton Manors. So progress in that recognition. And last year, we recognized Lynn Lawrence, a black woman, entrepreneur, woman, American queen for decades, right? So another black business within Wilton Manors. So there are a few little positives and some recognition, and we'll be honoring 3 women this coming month. So again, Jasmine, Cardell, other people, little bits of progress and also recognition. We're trying to commission to give them, kudos for recognizing individuals involved in Ujima and black business owner, and also Terry, who's across multiple organizations. So that's all some positives.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I know that we have additional questions. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of the road for this particular town hall. However, I do encourage everybody to get in touch with us. And like Jasmine mentioned, part of our initiative is to connect people together. So if you do have any questions, lingering questions, and you don't have the contact information for the individuals that you would like to answer that question, you can reach out to myself or Jasmine. My email is jbaptiste@hotspots.lgbt. And again, this is all possible thanks to the Cookout, a Black History Month celebration. It was an initiative of the Cookout to have this. This is just one starting point for us in terms of having a substantive conversation. I commit myself and our team to make sure that we include a lot of other community members and stakeholders in planning these events and coming to the table on the onset of the thought process and actually bringing it to fruition. Other than that, again, I just have to thank HotSpots for providing this opportunity, empowering this event in terms of providing the resources and all that goes into planning this in regards to the support that it needs, as well as the city of Wilton Manors. We do have the relationship with the city where they do sponsor some of our events and things of that nature. And if we can lend the support to other organizations to do the same, we're willing and I don't want to necessarily say able to, because we can't necessarily do anything unless we get permission to do it. But we are willing to put in the effort and see what we can do for others that are in the community as well. Again,
You've interrupted. Mr. Wynn, we know I support you. You do a lot of events around Wilton Manors. So my question to HotSpots, when I for the years I lived there, I very seldom see anybody look like me in there. Even the cameraman, I see them pass me by and choose someone more than likely that don't look like me. This man has had so many events. Why is HotSpot a poor sector, my friend? When he was hired last year, we began to see more of us in HotSpots. He explained to me he's no longer with HotSpots. There have been disagreements about his views versus their views, and now you barely see us again. Why do we not see Mr. Wynn's events promoted? There's other black promoters within the gay community that I'm familiar with since the time I moved here. I very seldom.
Well, let me answer that question, not to cut you off, because we do have to close out the event, but I could say that I reach out to, and Anthony could vouch for this. I am the one that reaches out to Anthony almost every month to make sure that he has an ad in our magazine, almost every month. And it is relentless. Every month I reach out to his team to get it back. And as a person of color, it's something that I do constantly. Now, if I don't get a response back, I can't run after everybody. I'm sorry. I can't, but I do put in the effort there. And when it comes to the pictures and stuff, it's something that we are working on and really actively working on. Like Jasmine and Jeff mentioned, it's something that internally we do. A lot of times you don't get to see, and at all, you don't get to see what happens behind the closed doors, but the work is intentional and it's being there. When it comes to adding all those things and making it possible, we do try our best, but it is progress, and it's slow and incremental progress when you're stuck in a structure that is already developed for a certain community.
I have to say this, HotSpots Magazine has done something that has never been done for our organization in terms of providing a full-page ad. We've never had that, and I had never, prior to HotSpots offering that space, I had never seen anything in there related to what was going on in the Black LGBT community. And so I applaud them for that. And I think that what he's referring to is that, the What's Happening page and, some of now, that's a whole different something else that, I think that HotSpots is going to correct. But in terms of the ad itself, promote more, yes, they have been absolutely 100 on that. 100 times 100. Thank you. And I appreciate it. Yeah.
And so, yes, it is something that, we know internally too, we miss steps, and we have to continue the work and put in that effort. And we are trying our best to do so. We do speak up and speak out, even behind closed doors, for our own organization. I want you guys to understand that. And I know that it's hard to see it on the outside because you still see that shade of white all over. But we are making a concerted effort from the top down to make sure that all of that change is happening, and trust and believe that we are. And that's part of our closing that we wanted to say here today. It's not only us expecting from the businesses and the city officials and so on and so forth. We love to hear those comments and things like that of what we need to do to help further along the progression. Trust me when I say that we're speaking about it behind closed doors, but also if you see things that do need to change, definitely let us know so that we know that you're watching us and you're holding our feet to the fire as well. So again, thank you everybody for coming out. I know that there's a lot of questions out there that want to be asked, and unfortunately we just don't have the time for it right now, but definitely reach out to us. And if not us, there's many people in this room that you know of that are connected with us, and you can communicate it to them. But our effort is to continue this conversation, and this not be the last time that we all can have this conversation.
And then very quickly, as final words, I have the questions. So questions that we weren't able to ask out loud, there are good ones in here. I will make sure they get to the appropriate place or get publicized if that's what needs to happen, because they're good. I would also say my email is jrogers@hotspots.lgbt. I'm at the intersection of race and gender. So everything Black, everything woman, it's all me. So if there are ways that we can amplify your event, amplify your organization, like let us know. There's multiple platforms that are at our disposal that we can figure out how to do that and flex the power that we have. I also want to invite you all, because we know that Wilton Manors is not only the white Mecca, but it's also the man Mecca. So in March, in Women's History Month, we'll be having a similar conversation about what do you do in Wilton Manors when you're not gay, when you're not the G, and what does that look like for the rest of us to also be amplified in that way? So another roundtable discussion. We're also tailoring several events in Women's History Month towards LGBTQ women in Wilton Manors. So we hope that as much as we talked about the whites and the businesses, that the men will also be there to support and also amplify the fact that, you know, the LGBTQ plus is all of us and all of the different flavors and ways that we come. So thank you all again. Hold our feet to the fire. You have our contact information. Jeff is...
Say goodbye.
For 30 seconds. For 30 seconds.
I thank everyone. You know, we're not perfect at what we do, and obviously I can't become a Black man or a woman. Okay, I know there's stories out there, but that's too much for this little man. But all I can do is the best I can do with the people around me, do the best that we can do, and try to make up for all these lapses that we know that are there. So all your concerns that are directed towards us, all of them, put it down that end, okay? You got it, okay? So, and I heard it. And I want you to know in our organization, you can contact the top. And I'm much more amenable to the top comes like beer, all right? But you can come right to me or to our people, we discuss it all. So I want you to know that this is your first step. The video that we're taking of this, that's the start of the next phase. So the answer of not enough business owners being here, not enough of the police department, not enough white people. Yeah, we got that, okay? So, but what we need to do now is to take this, what we created, and build it into certain segments to hit those targeted groups, all right? And use it as a tool to educate, train, and motivate. And that's, so what you did today, you may not feel like something's accomplished, but I want to tell you that we're the largest gay media network in the state. I heard you. And so did our partner, Al. It's the second down and happening out. We heard you. Okay? We're going to do our best, and I'm probably going to fail a lot. And as I'm told constantly, put my foot in my mouth and shove it firmly down my throat. So, but in the last point, I want you to say, I apologize. I did not invite the police department. We selected city departments to be here, and it just didn't dawn on me. But I want to assure you, I would have asked, they would have been here. To work closely with these people. And I'm going to take this video, and I'm going to go to the chief, who I have a great relationship with, and I'm going to get him to watch and to listen and hear your words. Because our police aren't going to have to be perfect, but I know upper management really does care. Because I've called on them on racial issues before, and they've been right by my side. So I'm not defending individual actions. I'm going to tell you that's my fault that they're not here, and I'm going to make up for that after this event. All right? Thank you, everybody.
LGBTQ+ news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBT